adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue.
We would be honored if you would join us.
How are you feeling? Your latest workups on your condition indicate that all damage has been reversed. Recovery is total. I believe you have been quite fortunate. No further thanks are necessary, Commander, but you are most welcome. It is my function and pleasure as a medical droid to help and heal human beings.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
All right, hello everybody, welcome. You're listening to Star Wars from the Bacta Tank on Rain Man Digital. We are live today, and we're going to be discussing a couple different things tonight. I am in the studio with David. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Very, very different doing a Star Wars show at night.
It is. It feels really weird.
I'm not used to it. We're usually doing like afternoons, mornings.
Well, because the Force is strong with us in the morning when we have coffee.
Yeah, Monday at 8 p.m. is like the skank shift. It just feels it's just completely off.
You feel dirty and tired.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be doing a couple different things tonight. We're going to start with the Star Wars Rebels version. If you're listening live, if you're listening on demand, then this conversation means nothing to you right now. But we're going to be starting with the Star Wars Rebels edition first. We're going to break down the latest episode,
Speaking of dirty,
the latest and not so greatest episode. Speaking of the skank shift, episode of Star Wars Rebels, and then we're going to take a break and then get into the regular show where we're going to talk about Rogue One, Episode 8, Han Solo. All types of news has come out in the last week again. So we'll be speculating and nerding out and being, general icky nerds. So why we talk about Star Wars, right?
And to wash off the filth.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started here. Star Wars Rebels. I don't know what episode it is. Episode 9, let's say, of the season. After a 2-week hiatus and a mediocre episode, Star Wars Rebels returns with a rather disappointing episode again. So we had a 2-week hiatus, a mediocre episode at best.
Well, as I told you, it wasn't a bad episode.
It wasn't a bad, but it was mediocre.
Yes.
The only thing that made it good was the slow burn development of Thrawn. Yeah, that is it. But other than that, we followed it up with another wet fish of an episode. I don't know what to say. I mean, I was going through the show notes. We're never negative on Star Wars, and no. I have to say that it was really hard doing show notes this evening when I was putting together everything because I don't know where to go with this discussion.
Well, I was really. I'll be honest. I love the fact that we're always a force of positivity when it comes to Star Wars, especially since there's a lot of trolls out there.
Yeah,
but this episode definitely brought the troll out in me because about midway through the show, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Let's be fair. Are you trolling them or the writers trolling us with this episode?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Yeah, let's discuss that. I don't know. You know what? We've been waiting for a Zeb-eccentric episode all season since the very well written episode of last year where we got our last Zeb-eccentric episode where he was stranded on a planet with Agent Kallus.
And then we had the tease of the Death Star in the background, which was fantastic.
Yes. And we've been waiting since that point. We've been waiting for another Zeb episode. And they finally delivered one where he was finally not in the background. He was doing his thing. And it didn't do just for him at all. It's kind of sad to see that he's become he's sidelined into he's basically on the bench this season. And he's brought in a second stringer for an episode like this.
Yeah.
It's such a waste of talent and such a character that we've really, since season 1, we just have not really got back to.
And the sad part is it wasn't even the character's fault. It was all the other characters around him. And that's what made this episode so frustrating, was the fact that, just like what you said, we finally get an episode centered around a character. Maybe we get more development on the Ghost Crew, but honestly, this episode felt like a major back. They took 2 steps backwards with this episode.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that, because you started talking about that before we started tonight, and yes. I want to get into that. Okay, when we focus our discussion on Ezra, so let's just wait. Remind me not to miss that point, because that's a very important topic.
Yeah.
But I want to start first with Hondo. This week, we return to Hondo, meaning Hondo re-enters the screen. And I have to say, I guess we're just going to be negative this week, because I'm really starting to not look forward to the episodes with him in it.
Yeah, I have to agree.
And this is why. Okay, let's take a look at his very first appearance and his very first introduction into what still is Star Wars canon. He was among the properties that remained canon when Disney took over, because as we know, his first appearance was in Star Wars Clone Wars.
Yes.
Which Lucasfilm kept as canon. And if you want to, let's go in the Wayback Time Machine once again, David. Okay? Let's feed Mr. Fusion and go back in time. Hondo was introduced as a very interesting and compelling opponent. Okay? Not a member of the Three Stooges, but an opponent. If you remember his very first appearance in Clone Wars, he managed to capture not one Jedi, not 2 Jedi, but 2 Jedi and a Sith.
A Sith Lord.
A Sith Lord, Count Dooku. Forget a Sith Lord and 2 Jedis. 2 of the greatest Jedis that we've seen.
Yeah.
Anakin, Obi-Wan, and then, of course, the Sith Lord Count Dooku. He managed to get the upper hand in all 3 of them and swindle the Empire and the Republic and bend them at his will.
Yeah.
And this is what the great Hondo has been turned into. And not just this episode. I've kept my mouth shut about what they've done with Hondo since he came on board. They turned him into a schlocky joke.
Yeah.
And that's not what he was. And I know I'm very, like, I'm coming out the box swinging tonight, David. I'm a little too passionate, I think, about Hondo, but it's just frustrating when you take a character that was not groomed to be the laughing stock of Star Wars, and you're turning him into a Jar Jar Binks type episode.
Well, you gotta remember,
or a character.
You got to remember, Hondo is also a really big fan favorite. Ever since Rebels started and Clone Wars has been around, the fans, Hondo is like one of those beloved characters that basically fans everywhere got behind. And he was, remember when they did the teaser for this episode, fans went crazy when you got to see Hondo again.
Yep.
And everyone was cheering when they saw the clip with, oh, Hondo's back. And it's like, I'm like you now after 3 times. This is like his third time in the series.
I think it's 4th, actually. Might be his 4th
Probably
appearance.
his 4th. But like, after this one time, it's kind of like, okay, if you're not going to take this character somewhere, you're not going to actually develop this character.
Don't bring him in.
Don't bring him in anymore.
Just leave him alone, because you're diminishing and ruining a character that was pretty interesting. And the reason why people liked Hondo was not because he's a schlocky, dumb character. It's because he was, I don't want to call him the Han Solo, because he wasn't, but he represented he represented the other spectrum of Star Wars. You have the Jedi Knights and the mythology and the darkness, and then you have that other swashbuckling side of things, the adventurous, the Indiana Jones side of things, like Han Solo. Let's throw Han Solo, let's throw Lando, let's throw Boba Fett. You have the swashbuckling antics of smugglers and pirates.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an awesome concept, and that's where Hondo was originally.
Plus, the way he talks is like those old time pirates.
Yeah,
you expect him to all of a sudden come swinging in on a rope off of a ship.
Yeah,
and that's why I love
like
this
Sloth
character
from Goonies.
At least he's not screaming, "Hey, you guys!"
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, that'd be so sad. I like throw my hands up, and go, yeah, they destroyed this character. Fantastic.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, he represented the other spectrum for fans. The other reason why people love Star Wars. And they've turned him into the very reason why there is hate, unfortunately, on Star Wars. And it's the schlocky, over the top, Three Stooges, dated comedy that you've seen 100 times. They're not even funny jokes. It's the bumbling fool.
No, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, like, dude, the whole point for Hondo this whole season, or even the past season, was the fact that he wanted to form his pirates because he lost his pirate crew from the Clone War days.
And Dave, to go along with that, do you remember how hardcore his pirate crew was?
Oh, yeah.
They were badass. I mean, the production design on those characters, I mean, the art department won their A game when they started developing these characters. And obviously, they took cues from Ralph McCurry, obviously. But now we get his team is Melch and As Morgan.
Oh, don't even go there. I wish As Morgan would have died in this episode.
You have a character that looks like Michael Moore. He looks just like Michael Moore. And an Ugnaught. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, Star Wars Rebels, are you even are you even trying?
Yeah.
Holy shit, this episode was bad.
And think about it, dude. I mean,
I feel horrible right now, dude. I think we're berating this episode, but I couldn't find anything good in it.
I know, same here. This is the first time in probably since season 2.
I feel so bad right now, man, because this is a fan show, and a lot of people come to listen to us because we're not the representation on the internet where a lot of people are just trolly and negative.
Yeah.
But man, I couldn't. I mean,
when I was watching this, dude, all my notes were just negative.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, why are we here? I think one of the things was I just want to do my dishes now.
Okay, so the person who wrote this this episode is Mel Zoyer, and Gary Whitta, and directed by Mel Zoyer.
That's what even baffles me. There is Gary Whitta was the one who wrote this.
Yeah, and he's put up some pretty good episodes. So I'm wondering what happened with this episode. Now let's get into Hondo a bit more and how Ezra and him interconnect. And why? And the whys, okay? So Hondo continues to build his crew, as we saw, as Morgan and Melch. Basically, as I said, we have the Three Stooges at this point. And plus, we have the unnamed fourth crew member, which is debatably Ezra Bridger.
Yes.
He has been referred to as his crew, his partner, and as you know, he's always recruiting Ezra, and thereby Ezra is recruiting the rest of the Rebels crew, thereby recruiting us, the audience, having to see this debacle unfold. Now, is it just me, Dave, or is anyone else scratching their head wondering why Ezra even likes Hondo? Let's quit trolling for a second, okay, and get into the reasons why, because I know it's a cartoon on Disney XD, but for the most part, the character interactions are pretty realistic.
Yes.
There's reasons why certain characters are connected to others and maybe pushed away from others.
Yes. Well, see, here's
why. What is this connection? Maybe you can explain. What are the writers trying to do you think, in your opinion, with this odd connection between Ezra and Hondo that to me does not make sense? I don't see how someone as arrogant as Ezra, as impatient as Ezra, could find it in his heart
or his brain
to want to help Hondo in any way.
Well, here's the thing, okay? That was the first note that I actually pointed out about they're ruining the relationship of Hondo and Ezra at this point by dragging this on.
Yeah.
Is the fact that I understand why Ezra is enamored by Hondo.
Okay, so explain that part.
The first part, the reason why him and Hondo get along so well is because in Ezra's younger life, all Ezra wanted to be, at the core, was almost like a pirate. He wanted to have that freedom. He didn't want to be... You got to remember, in season 1, he was balancing that act of being a rebel soldier and still being a kid who wanted to do the right thing or have freedom. You know, that was the whole point of Ezra. Why Ezra actually even chose to fight the Empire in the first place was because the Empire took away his freedom.
Okay. All right.
Hondo represents that, basically that pirate mentality that we can do whatever we want. No one rules us. We make our own rules.
Okay. I can buy that.
And that's how the relationship started. So season 1, right? That's how it starts.
Right.
So it's almost like a hero fan relationship.
Okay, I can buy that, and I see that. And that's kind of what I was seeing in the first season. But since then, I mean, Hondo's really delivered nothing of worth to Ezra.
Yeah, absolutely.
He gets nothing from that relationship. And I know they made it a point to say that. Kanan even said to Hera, I know what you're doing, but Ezra's got to figure this out on his own, in terms of meaning this odd friendship that he knows is going to go nowhere with Hondo. Now, again, what do you think the writers are trying to show us? Like growth in Ezra, development and maturity? Like, what is the point? Like, yes, I see. Obviously, they're doing it for a reason, because Kanan said it. They wrote the character to even address that situation. But what do they have to gain in terms of development on Ezra by continuing this schlocky relationship?
And that's the thing. I was really hoping by this episode that we would get a conclusion with Ezra, so that Ezra would stop looking at Hondo that, oh, he's what I want to become. He's like this lost, almost best friend, father figure that he wants to idolize. And by second season, we already the funny part is, in second season, it already was assumed that he came to that understanding. He doesn't want to become like Hondo. He wants to be his own person. There was the episode where he didn't want to become a pirate.
Yeah.
And instead he wanted to follow Kanan and become a Jedi Knight and all that jazz. And it made sense. So second season, that should have been the end of the whole Hondo Ezra relationship. But in season 3, the whole thing that I was like thinking to myself, okay, they're going to take the relationship to another level, where it's now time to see Hondo develop as a character, because we get to actually see Hondo get that crew that he's been missing. He's not going to have Ezra, but he needs to actually assemble his old crew again, because that's his family.
Yeah. And you know what? And I get what they're doing with Hondo in terms of his lack of loyalty. They're trying to sell you on it like the Jack Sparrow / Lando vibe, where,
but there's
hey,
a limit to that.
Exactly. Like they're trying to show the audience that's what Hondo is. He's the Jack Sparrow / Lando of the story, where, hey, you know what? I'm looking out for number one, but in the end, you know, you're going to like me because I'm funny, I'm the bad boy, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, I'm going to have your back. But we fail to see Hondo ever having anyone's back, not even his own crew.
Not even his own crew.
There is no redeeming qualities about Hondo at this point. He's not even a cool chess player like he was when we first was introduced to him back in his pirating days in the Clone Wars. There's literally nothing likable about his character at this point.
Yeah, like all of his qualities that we've grown to love as fans, they're almost like they've been erased. Something took that away from Hondo. And I get it. I understand like what they're trying to say is like when he lost the ability to have a pirate crew and be a leader of a crew, he lost all of that. Okay, well then we should see development in his character to see how he gets that back. Or at least have a conclusion, like basically, I hate to say it, like Hondo should die then at this point. If he can't achieve his goals, that's the finale.
So harsh. Hey, Hondo, if you can't achieve your goals, you should die.
You should die. I mean, or do something with the character besides just stick him in there. And just like we said, it's now a joke.
I agree with you. And that's something that we have not seen done in 3 seasons so far of Rebels. We have not seen characters just being put into the show just because. There's always been thought and foresight into development of the story with the introduction of each character. Even in so-called filler episodes, there is still thought into putting a character in. For example, last week, we weren't 100% on board with last week's episode. However, the introduction of Commander Sato's son made sense. It was there to develop Commander Sato and also the versus relationship between Sato and Thrawn.
Yes.
There was a point to the filler episode and a point to introducing a character. He wasn't just there to annoy the piss out of you. Hondo, to me, is comic relief in a cartoon that's not needed. He doesn't truly have a point in this story arc or the narrative anymore.
Not anymore. Unless,
or I should say just the narrative anymore.
And that's the thing that frustrated even me further when I thought about it. The introduction of Hondo at this point takes the development of Ezra and takes it 2 steps backwards now.
Yeah, we don't need comedy relief anymore.
Yeah.
Like for Hondo, we have Chopper who delivers the right amount of comedy when you need it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you do a comedic character like this for this type of series now. It's not in your face or, oh God, the character I just grew to detest and I was just wanting him to get killed was As Morgan.
Yeah.
I hated that character.
Probably because he looks like Michael Moore, but
because I'm like going, you know, if this is Hondo's idea of a person he wants on his crew, what happened to Hondo of Clone Wars where he had all these badasses on his crew?
Dude, this is the writers dialing it in, dude. They were just like, hey, you know, we got to have 24 episodes this season, and we're short on stories.
Throw a Hondo episode.
Yeah, this is bad. On that note, we need to move on. Let's see here. We have overall feelings on the episode. I don't think we need to get into that. I think we already expressed our overall feelings.
Yeah.
But this brings me to our next point. We have a couple more minutes before we have to close out the Rebels edition. Mid-season break is coming up. We have 2 more episodes, okay? Which mean if you want to count the season premiere as 2 episodes, which if you look at IMDb, they do consider them. They have production codes 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay. So that means we're going to be on the 11th episode. Okay. Coming up.
With Rogue One.
For the mid-season break.
Right afterwards.
Right. Okay. Now, before I start yelling fire and everyone starts running out the building, I'm going to check my facts first and then come back next week, or maybe the mid-season finale will come back with a complete breakdown and list of episodes from last season, and we're going to compare them to where they're at in terms of the main myth arc for this season. Are they progressing the story along as much as they did the first and second season? Because as of right now, I would say if you break down everything that's happened, and I didn't really see it until right now, until today. We're closing in on the mid-season finale. 12th episode coming on up. And can you pinpoint any story development since the Bendu and Maul running away to Tatooine?
No.
Okay, and how many episodes ago was that? 7?
7.
In 7 episodes, the entire season so far, there's literally been not one bit of true story development. And I'm starting to get scared for this season. I know we had this discussion at the beginning of the season when we found out Dave Filoni has left the building.
You mentioned it off air today that basically you hit it on the head.
And the most interesting part of this season was already started by Dave Filoni before he left, which is the Darth Maul and Bendu scenario. And I'm a little concerned because, as we know, we're big Dave Filoni fans. And we're like, yeah, you know what? It'll be okay. We'll be okay. And judging, again, based on what we've seen, and we get away from the cool Star Wars fans that we are and really break down the season. And I honestly think, as of right now, if we put these seasons, line them up parallel to each other and break down the development and the motion of the myth arc for each season, this season has not moved since episode 3.
Yes.
Which is not a good sign.
It's not. It really is. I mean, like, we've been championing this season because of the episodes with Thrawn have been really strong. And
well, not the episodes. And we said this last week. It's not even the episodes themselves. It's Thrawn. The 15, 20 seconds that we get of Thrawn has been a really nice touch to the slow burn development of his character. But the episodes itself are okay. And when you look at the big, let me just, again, maybe we're jumping the gun and we'll come back to this in 2 weeks. In two more episodes, we'll come back to this. But just look at what the Rebels accomplished in season 1 as a team. Look what the Rebels accomplished as a team in the second season. And look what they've accomplished this year. Can anybody pinpoint what their mission is this year?
Yeah. Exactly.
First season, we can pinpoint their mission. Last season, we can pinpoint their mission. This year, what are they doing? Are they just wandering in space? What is their end game? There is no end game.
Yeah, they just seem to be just dragging their feet on everything.
We're going from one episode to the next, and we don't really have a clear picture of what the Rebel Alliance is doing right now. We had a clear picture in the first 2 seasons. We understood the end game of Hera and her Rebel group. And in second season, we had a larger picture of the Rebel Alliance and what it really is about. This year, we have no idea what's going on. And maybe they're doing that because of Rogue One, and they don't want to touch on they don't want to step on anybody's toes at Lucasfilm. Maybe they're saying, hey guys, in order for us not to fuck anything up in this time period, how about we keep the Rebel Alliance thing vague? Let's keep the Rebel scenario vague. But you know what? If that's the case, you guys have missed the point of your very own show called Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah. Also, the thing you gotta realize, if they're thinking of like trying not to step on anybody's toes, how much easier would it have been? Okay, you don't want to step on anyone's toes, then focus on the story of the Force. Because guess what? Rogue One, there's nothing to do with the Force. At most, you get Donnie Yen's character, talking philosophically about the Force, but that's it. There's no Force.
They're not going to be delving deep into the mysticism of the Force.
They're not going to be delving into the mysticism of the Force. They're delving into the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
So if they're worried about, we can't step on Rogue One's toes, okay, then just like what you said, what happened to the Bendu? Like, he disappeared after his last thing, and I'm like going, he has that Sith holocron.
Yeah, it's a shame, man, because they have 30-minute episodes when you think about it. 30-minute episodes, which basically comes out to be 12 episodes a season. You have not a lot of time, but enough time, if I should say, to I guess that's a better way of saying it. You have enough time. You're not the 24-episode typical network television show with 42 minutes and you have to fill up time because you have 24-episode order and you don't have enough story to do to fill in, so you fill it with filler episode. That's where the definition of filler episode came in. But in the day and age where we have HBO, Starz, Cinemax, FX, and you have 10 to 14 episode orders from networks now, from cable networks, there's not a lot of filler episodes. They don't exist anymore. And I don't think they're needed in a show like Star Wars Rebels either, where, again, technically 30-minute episodes, 24 episodes a season, you have 11 to 12 episodes.
Yeah. And dude, it's just like what you said. I mean, after a certain point when they finished, or they didn't even finish it, when the episode of Darth Maul and Ezra opening the Sith holocron, when that ended, we were all jazzed up. We were like, okay, they're going to take this into a new direction. And then all of a sudden, it's almost as if the whole show just screeched to a halt.
The whole universe screamed out in pain.
Yeah, because if you think about it, then they introduced Thrawn, and then we get what me and you have always been saying is that slow burn of his character and basically developing and establishing him as this evil force.
Exactly.
And then you get like this episode that Thrawn's not even in it.
Yeah.
He's not even in it.
Yep.
So it's like, it's damaging even then, because like when you even think, when I was watching this episode, I'm like going, there's no sense of tension in this episode.
Yeah. It gets an F grade for fuck you.
Although,
all right, we need to end this part of the show.
It's still not as bad as Sister of the Traveling Mandalorian Pants. It's not. It can't be.
That's the, I gotta weigh those pros and cons there. But all right, you know what? All right, that is it for today's Star Wars Rebels edition. But don't go anywhere if you're listening live. We're gonna go to a quick break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna get into the regular part of our show where we're gonna talk happy. about all the upcoming Star Wars news and installments and whatnot. If you're listening on demand, thank you for listening.
May the Force be with us.
Hello, this is Stormtrooper 1, and if you've missed any portion of the show, you can always head over to FromTheBactaTank.com and listen to the show at your leisure. We're also on Stitcher, Smart Radio, Stitcher.com, search Bacta, and add us to your favorites. Thank you, and listen responsibly. And may the Force be with you. And long live. Thank you for listening to From the Bacta Tank. And From the Bacta Tank is executive produced by Michael Flores and Dustin Lucas. Hosted by Michael Flores, David Zabal. You can find out more about our show by going to www.fromthebactatank.com. You can also find us on Twitter at FromBactaTank, as well as Facebook, facebook.com/FromTheBactaTank. Thank you.